Good afternoon and welcome to Locked On NBA. It's media day across the NBA, and we're asking our hosts, what are the biggest expectations and trends going into the season? Plus, we start our team preview series with the Hawks and the Spurs. Can Trae Young get the Hawks over the hump? And who will emerge as Wemby's co-star? All of that and more on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we are kicking off our NBA team preview series the only way the Locked On Podcast Network can do it. We'll do that here in a second, and we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast, senior NBA writer over at the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt.
It's muscle watch season, baby. 15 pounds of muscle, trimmed down, slimmed down. Everybody's in the best shape of their lives, ready for the best season they're ever going to have. The best part about Media Day is the one day of the NBA calendar season where there is nothing but unbridled optimism and nothing to stand in its way, except me and Haize. We're here to stop all that nice optimism because that's not what we're here for.
Bulls and Bears creator for Bleacher Report, host of Locked On Bulls, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, have fun. Everybody's team has the chance to make the playoffs as it stands right now. Everybody's record's the exact same. And me and Matt are going to be here 365 days to tell you guys why your team sucks.
I love it. Just let's start the season as negative as possible, just throwing cold water on all of the fans. Everybody will continue to tune into this. Let's do this. So we're going to talk about the Hawks. We're going to talk about the Spurs when we get into our team previews, team-specific previews here in a second. But I thought, hey, everybody else is doing Media Day. Why not us? We're recording this, full disclosure, on Sunday before these Media Days are actually happening. So we wanted to get ahead of things. And I'm going to ask you guys some kind of Media Day typical questions, but this time you guys are going to be the ones answering it. And the first one is, what NBA trends are you watching for this season, Matt?
I think we're going to see a lot of the return to defensive type teams because of the success of the Thunder, right? Because this is a copycat league, and we're going to see a lot more, I think, emphasis placed on defense. I think there is going to be kind of this awareness. If you look back last season, Thunder, best defense in the league by a wide margin. Rockets, number 2 seed, one of the top 5 defenses. You look at these teams pretty specifically, and you're seeing defense is becoming more important, even in a league where it's harder to play than ever. I do think we're going to see more zone this season because I think that's been kind of proven as like, look, if we're going to try and slow down some of these mechanisms, zone is probably our best chance since we don't have the ability to guard on the perimeter because we don't have, one, the talent, two, the rules to allow for that. So I think you're going to see that. And then, one of the biggest trends is just going to be watching out for all of the stuff with the Clippers. Like I continue to wonder if this is going to be a Pandora's box that we're going to open up and realize how often this kind of stuff goes on. So I'm very curious to see what else happens with the biggest story of the offseason, the Kawhi Leonard scandal.
That's the thing to watch out for this season. What happens with the Kawhi Leonard thing? Even though it's not expected to reach a resolution for another handful of months, but we'll see what happens there. But I think if we're talking about like trends that happens in the NBA, I think this is the season we start. I don't think it's figured out, but I do think we start seeing, and this piggybacking off Matt's point, is the defense adapting to 3-point shooting. I think we're going to start seeing the change to that a little bit. The volume of 3-point shooting has been on the rise consistently for like almost the last decade. I think we start seeing a little bit of change to that. I think even if you look at some of the talent coming in the NBA, I think we're going to go back to a little bit more of isolation scoring and attacking the rim a little bit more. So I think that's something to look out for that starts this season.
Haize, are you with me on this? That like I've been arguing this since last season. I'm just like, look, man, guard the 3 first. And every coach is like, no, we have to stop the rim. So guard that. They're not looking for the rim. They're expecting you to guard the paint to get that 3. Like their offenses are geared to get the 3. Guard the 3 first and figure out how to guard the paint is where I'm at with where the league is at.
Yeah, I've compared it to this. You know what is becoming the NBA? Because even teams that don't have great 3-point shooting are taking a lot of threes. It's turned into button mashing. Like for those that play fighting games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, like you know that sometimes you can be a sound fighter and you can get beat by somebody just mashing buttons and finding the right combination at the right time. That's where it feels like 3-point shooting is gone for the last couple of years. It's just button mashing 3-point shots. And I mean, to his credit, teams are finding success in it and winning games that they probably shouldn't be winning. But I do think like it has to be like there's going to be a counter to that defensively here soon.
You saw the Thunder win the championship last year. They weren't elite at 3-point shooting the way that the Celtics were last year, right? And to Hayes' point, you saw a guy like SGA, a lot of isolation scoring type of offense. Maybe that is where things are leaning into Matt's point too. Maybe things are leaning a little bit more defensively like the Thunder were last year. Next question for you guys here on Media Day. Who is somebody that you expect to make a leap this season, Hayes?
Ooh, that's a great question. I know this is going to sound crazy because he's already considered a star, but I'm still looking at Anthony Edwards to make. I think Anthony Edwards is going to put together a season where he is talked about in MVP voting, and I don't mean like just in the top 4 or 5. I mean like legitimately 1 or 2 in MVP voting this year. I think Anthony Edwards makes that kind of step and makes that kind of leap this year. Outside of him, I think a player that we talked about on our last episode on Friday, look out for Evan Mobley. He's another one I think is going to make a considerable leap this year.
I'll go Franz Wagner. Putting that guy with a different offensive system with actual shooting, I think is going to be huge because Wagner is kind of the guy that I think sees the floor and sees the game a little bit better than Paolo. I think still Paolo has all the potential in the world, but there is like a real question right now of who's the better player between Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. So he's one I would definitely look at. I think you're going to see a lot of the Pacers take a step forward this season. I just think that without Tyrese Halliburton, they're going to put the ball in Andrew Nembhard's hands a lot. Like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him. Aaron Nesmith has pretty much lived up to every opportunity that he's been given. Benedict Mathurin going to have a lot more opportunities this season. I think that he's another great one to kind of look at. Tyrese Maxey might be a guy that I think can make a big leap this season, regardless of whether the Sixers are healthy or not when it comes to Embiid and Paul George. I think Maxey is kind of entering the season as like, I'm not going to have my career derailed by this inconsistency. So I'm going to be the guy that kind of steps up and takes the step forward. And then the final answer, obviously, is every single Washington Wizard. They're all going to be better this season.
Hayes, I want to go back to Matt's point on the Pacers. He listed a couple of different guys there. Who do you think would be, if the Pacers could control the future, right? And this is the guy that takes a leap. Who do you think that they would prefer to take that leap to be there when Tyrese Halliburton comes back? And obviously they still have Pascal Siakam.
I think they're hoping it's Ben Mathurin. I think they're hoping that Ben Mathurin, like he's shown flashes of it, and no knock on Nembhard or Nesmith or those guys at all, because I think those guys are really good too. But I think if you're talking about any of those 3 players that has the personality, the skill set, and the drive to really turn into a star, I think it's Ben Mathurin. So I think they're hoping that Mathurin makes that leap.
The money is tough though, right? Like this is one of the things that's going to be really interesting is if Mathurin makes this big leap and is in line for a big extension, that immediately means it's going to be harder to retain Nembhard. So I think that's one of the things that I think the Pacers are actually kind of doing this season is seeing like, okay, hey, in some ways, this is kind of open competition for who's going to be our number 2 going forward. I guess number 3 behind Siakam, our number 2 as far as the guards go. Who's going to be our main scorer next to Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. So I think there's like an opportunity for both of those guys to compete for it. But this is one of the complicating factors is the better that Mathurin does, the harder it's going to be to retain him. And if they do retain him, the harder it is to keep Nembhard, Nesmith, etc. Realities of the CBA, but that's why I think is going to make some of this a little bit fascinating to watch from a political perspective.
And there it is, the cold water that Matt promised there. Last question for you guys as we head into this NBA season. What is your message to fans? Could be anything. Purposely open-ended question here. But what's your message to fans in regards to the upcoming season? We'll start with you, Hayes.
I mean, I say just appreciate this point in the season. I know I made a joke at the opening of the show that we'll tell you why your team sucks. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, this is the time to be excited because for a lot of teams, after the first month of the season, that excitement goes away. For some teams, after the first 2 weeks of the season, it goes away. So, be excited about the season, embrace it, have fun with it. Let your optimism take over for a second, but because it's going to come crashing down for some of us really quickly. And I say us, because I am a Bulls fan, I fully expect it to come crashing down for myself as well. So, let's appreciate it now because it may not be here in a month.
Vote with your eyes. Vote with your eyes. You want better coverage? Watch the good coverage, because we got Amazon and NBC, and they're promising a different direction that actually celebrates the game. So go watch it. You want in-depth coverage? Put your eyeballs on stuff like Locked On NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network, because we actually do bring you in-depth stories around the league, and we talk about basketball. We actually talk about basketball. So vote with your eyes on these type of things, because we are going to have, I think, better coverage this season, and that's a great opportunity for fans to get more out of the game and to learn more about the game and to actually celebrate the game, as opposed to whatever nonsense is going on the 4-letter. So actually vote with your eyes and celebrate basketball, as opposed to just transactionalism.
That's what I'm talking about right there, Matt. Ringing endorsement for our network here and all of the shows that we're doing here. You're right. We all we do is talk about the real stories and real basketball. That said, coming up next, is this do or die for Trae Young this season? Let's do it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I throw a couple of these in my work bag every single day. It's great for when I'm working late. If I'm at the arena, I'm at a game, and I need a little bit of boost for then, maybe a boost before a workout in the middle of the day. I take these everywhere. And honestly, I love how fast it kicks in and that it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later on in the day. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen. The best way to support the show is to like and subscribe on YouTube. The season is around the corner, and over the next few days, we'll be checking in with the hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network and asking them the biggest questions facing the team that they cover heading into the season. We are kicking things off with the Hawks and the Spurs today, fellas. I'm going to call these the NBA Twitter hipster favorites, because if you ask anybody who spends enough time on NBA Twitter and you ask them, hey, what team do you think is under the radar that's going to be really competitive this year? They'll talk about the Hawks, because NBA hipsters love them some Jalen Johnson and Kristaps Porzingis. They'll talk about the Spurs, because NBA hipsters are just waiting for Victor Wembanyama and that team to make that leap. So we're going to start things with the hipster teams today, and we're going to start specifically with the Hawks. So we asked Brad Rowland, Locked On Hawks host, what's the biggest question facing your team going into the season? And we asked him something a little bit more specific about Trae Young. Let's get to Brad.
Brad Rowland, the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast. And the biggest question for the Hawks this season is, quite frankly, how the offseason moves actually added to this roster and what they actually are at this point. What I mean by that is the Hawks were a 500 level team last season. Despite some injury issues, they were a young team. It was a relatively encouraging season, but now they are one of the offseason darlings in the NBA. They've added Porzingis. They've added Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They've added Luke Kennard. They made a fantastic deal with the Pelicans that won't necessarily bear fruit this season. And you throw it all in the mix, and they're a consensus top 4 or 5 team in the East, but they haven't done that in 4 seasons. The last time they were at that level was 2021 when they went to the conference finals, and it's not a small leap to make to go from being a play-in level team the last several years in a row to being a clear top 4 team battling for home court advantage in the Eastern Conference. So what does Quinn Snyder have for them? What is Alexis Saleh going to be able to do in season if they need to add players? How will Porzingis fit? How will Alexander-Walker fit? And generally speaking, how will they respond to greatened expectations heading into the season?
Now, Matt, everybody has the Hawks as one of the big winners of the offseason. But Brad brings up an interesting point there. It's one thing to win the offseason, get the guys, sign the players, sign the names. It's another thing to discuss how they're actually going to fit on the roster and how long of a process that might be. So of those players, whose fit are you most interested in?
I think probably Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because with Porzingis, I actually don't even want to get to I don't think you can jump to fit. You have to see if he's able to play. But this is a guy that's battled injuries most of his career. And then last year he had a mystery illness that we still don't know what it was. We still don't know if he's fully healthy. We still don't know what the long-term effects are. So I'm always going to have a little bit of skepticism for whether or not Porzingis is actually going to be around. Now, they have Onyeka Okongwu, who I'm very high on, think is awesome. but that prevents them from being able to play certain types of styles that Porzingis allows. So for me, it's probably gonna be Nickeil Alexander-Walker and seeing, okay, you have Dyson Daniels, you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you have Jalen Johnson. Like, that's a really interesting combination of guys, but then you have to figure out how that fits in around Trae Young. Like, I'm skeptical, and we'll get to Trae in a second, but like, I'm skeptical of isocentric Trae basketball. Can they build something that is more egalitarian, where everybody touches, everybody eats, and get the most out of everybody? And is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is still a bench player in Minnesota, ready to be the kind of impact player that he was paid to be, Haize? Because like, he was one of the big pickups for them this summer. And NAW is always like, oh man, he's great. He's so awesome on his contract. Well, now he's on a bigger one. And I'm just curious to see what that means for him and the rest of the backcourt alongside Trae.
Yeah, I mean, you raise great points in regards to like the heavy isolation and Trae Young and stuff, but I think we've seen Trae Young has risen in assist at each of the last 3 years, and I think we're seeing Trae kind of adapt and understand how to play that more. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker's fit there is going to be really interesting because of what they paid him, as you laid out there. But I think he's going to fit easier than you're letting on. I think they're really looking at him to do what he does well, and just, of course, I think there's going to be more minutes there for him, and they're going to rely on him a little bit more. But I think they're pretty much just looking for him to do his thing. I'm looking at a player because I do think Jalen Johnson is the player that eventually is probably going to be Atlanta's best player. And I'm looking at Jalen as how everything fits with him going forward, because I think that's the most important thing. I think that's why you see them playing this game with Trae, where they want to see how he fits with the young guys, because they have kind of a natural pivot if they want to go a different direction. So Nickeil is going to be a big piece there. Kristaps is going to be huge for them if he can stay whenever he's healthy, right? I think at this point, assuming he's going to play more than 60 games is a pretty large assumption to make there. But I think it has to be for the question as far as their fit. It has to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think that has to be in his fit between Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson is going to be important there.
We're sort of talking around it. The Trae Young question. It's the big question. He's obviously extension eligible coming up here. It's a big season for him, whether or not he's part of whatever Atlanta is building going forward, or if somebody like Jalen Johnson is going to become the centerpiece. We asked Brad Rowland exactly about that. What's at stake for Trae Young this season?
It's Brad Rowland, the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and a question that is definitely bubbling around the Atlanta Hawks is basically how much is at stake for Trae Young this season. As I'm sure most NBA followers know, Trae Young is extension eligible right now. The Hawks have not found an extension for him. He's eligible throughout the season, so they don't have to be in a huge hurry. But after the season, he could become a free agent with the Hawks, and this is the only place he's ever been. So at this point in time, Trae Young has to prove to Atlanta that he's worthy of a max level or close to it extension. And around the league, he has to prove that the 1 year that they went to the conference finals is not a fluke. This is a team that's built well around him. I think he definitely can make the entire thing work, honestly, and with the Hawks. They are definitely well suited for him to captain the ship. Length, defense, shooting, it's all there for him. And after a couple of years where it was right to say that the Hawks were kind of mismatched with his skill set, now that's not the case anymore, and there's a lot of pressure on Trae Young, not just only Trae Young, but certainly as the face of the franchise, the best player, to help facilitate a jump for the Hawks this year. And if he can do that, his next steps will be very lucrative, no matter whether it's in Atlanta or somewhere else.
Matt, what does it look like for Trae Young to prove that he can be that guy? Do they have to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals? Do they have to get to the NBA Finals? Is there something like a stat line that he has to accomplish? What does Trae Young have to do in order to prove, hey, sign me to this extension, and let's make sure that this is a long-term partnership?
I'm not kidding. He has to have like a fluke year where they make a run. And there's not a lot that he can do individually, right? Locked On Hawks actually did a really good job of pointing this out last year, that his defense, Trae has moments where defensively, like, he actually gives a high level of effort. He gave a high level of effort last year defensively. He's never going to be good. He's not going to be good, but all you can ask from limited physical defenders is effort. And he actually gave that last season. But one of the problems, I think, inherently is he's not a great shooter. Like, you look at the history of his career, and it's 38% in 2023 or the 2022 season. Then it goes down to 33.5, 37%, then back down to 34. He has this, like, he bounces where he's just above league average, just below league average. He doesn't bottom out, but he's not a great shooter. And if you're going to have the usage that he does, where he has to have the ball in his hands all the time, you have to have like a high level of efficiency to make it worth it, or you've got to be a really great plus defender, and he's neither. So I don't know, Haize, what it is that he can do here, because I don't know that the combo is perfect with Porzingis. As far as you want him with you want him in basically the Harden system. High pick and roll, strong screener, rolls to the rim, get the lob threat, kick the shooters. But I don't know that the league is at a place where that's the best option anymore. They figured out how to guard that effectively. So I'm just a little bit skeptical as far as what there is for Trae to do, because maybe the best thing is for him to take less of a role, but that doesn't play to his strength. So I don't know the answer to this one.
I'm so glad that you pointed out the fact that Trae is not like this amazing three-point shooter. People like talk about him as if he's like this Steph Curry shooter, and he's never been there. He's a career 35% three-point shooter. Now, he takes a lot of threes. He takes a lot of them. Yeah. But he does fluctuate between near 38, then closer to 34, then the 33 season. Like he goes back and forth. Trae Young is not like this amazing three-point shooter. He's just not. He takes a lot of them because that's how the modern NBA game is done, and he's playing to that. But I think the thing that we have seen Trae become elite at is he is is becoming an elite playmaker. He's led the league in assists, I believe, last year. He's been near the top 2 the other 2 years of that. Like, that's something that I want to see Trae lean on, because while I think if his 3-point shot becomes complementary to his playmaking and he actually allows himself, you said, you're not sure if Trae not becoming secondary is what's best suited to his strengths. I think we've seen like that progression of him playmaking wise as his teammates have been better. If he continues to lean on that, still he's going to have the offense go through him. His usage rate is still going to be extremely high. He's still going to have a lot of touches, but if he can trust his teammates and rely on his playmaking and let his 3-point shooting be complementary to that, he's still going to get a bunch of them. I think that's going to be a big key to Atlanta Hawks seeing some type of major jump this year as a team.
Sounds like a tough needle to thread based on what you guys are sort of laying out here. And it might be right. I'm not saying that it's not. So we'll see what Trae Young can do. We're going to move over to the Western Conference for our next team preview next. Which guard will ultimately end up being Victor Wembanyama's running mate? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you're not going to want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much more fun. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen. The Locked On Podcast Network is a show for every team. So if your team had media day today, check out your team's specific show for the latest reactions and news from Media Day. Of course, you can check out Locked On Hawks and Locked On Spurs for more on the teams that we're talking about on today's episode. Let's get to Jeff Garcia from Locked On Spurs. We asked him, what is the biggest question facing the Spurs? And he pointed to, is this a turning point for the franchise?
This is Jeff Garcia of Locked On Spurs. What's the biggest question heading into the season for the San Antonio Spurs? Big question is, are they out of the rebuild? Is this it? Is it now time for them to step out of the shadows, return to the postseason? And I think they can do it. Healthy Wembanyama, healthy De'Aaron Fox, Castle coming off a phenomenal rookie season. You got the rookie Dylan Harper, and they brought in some help for Wemby, Olynyk, Cornette. This team is poised to get out of the regular season and into the postseason, back where they belong. Add in a possible bench depth, which could include Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Devin Vassell. Yeah, this team is poised to get out of the rebuild and back into the postseason.
Haize, is this team poised to get out of the rebuild and back into the postseason?
I think they're in a great position to do that. I mean, a lot of it, of course, depends on them finding their balance, how good Wemby is going now into year 3. And that pair with De'Aaron Fox. I think they're in a good position to get back into the postseason. I'm not ready to say it's a certainty. There's still a lot of stuff that we have to see in air. I know my co-host here, Matt, has a lot more questions about the Spurs than I do, but I think they're in a really good position to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sold here. I'm just not. It's not just that the West is brutal, right? And you're going to have to win probably, 44 to 46 games in order for you to reach the playoffs, unless you play your way in from the play-in tournament like the Heat. I'm not sold on the wings. I'm just not. What have we seen from Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell that's like, oh yeah, like they're reliable, lockdown. They're exactly who you need on the wing. It's always like, oh yeah, they're pretty good. That's not good enough, man. Like, this is the Western Conference. Like, you got to be really great. I don't know what any of the other guys that they have are elite at. Like, Wembanyama is elite at shot blocking and being a pterodactyl, right? I don't know what the rest of their guys are elite at. I really don't. They're not elite shooters. They're not elite playmakers. They're not elite defenders. The defense was wildly disappointing last season. And the idea is like, well, they have De'Aaron Fox, and I love Fox. I think Fox is awesome, but Fox has problems just like Trae Young in terms of his three-point shot. I think Fox is a great playmaker, but you got to have shooters around him. And I don't know that there's enough shooting. And I think Fox can be a plus defender, but there's a lot of youth on this team. And usually it's tough for young, that's shifting, but young teams have a hard time defending. I don't know what's their identity going to be. What is the thing, Haize, that's going to separate the Spurs and be like every single night you got to deal with this thing about them beyond just Victor being Victor?
I mean, I think that's what you're trying to figure out. But I think you're more so having the conversation if we like really trusted them to do anything. This is just about them making the postseason. Like I would say this, like the Kings won 40 games last year. Were they elite at anything? Even with De'Aaron Fox, were they elite at anything? It was 40 games to take them to get in the play-in. Like, I think the Spurs can discover that over the course of this season. And if Wemby is, the unicorn that he is when he's on the court, they can sneak into the play-in. They can get into the play-in. I don't know if we're going to expect them to do a lot in that play-in, but I think we're just talking about them getting into the postseason. Like they can discover that on that path to get there this season. The youth could play a huge part into that for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely willing to be like, hey, they can make the postseason. Like they can play games after the regular season is done. That they can do, but actually making the playoff bracket is where I'm kind of like, man, I don't know. I think there's a lot of other teams in the Western Conference I like a lot more.
So obviously the big question is whether or not the Spurs are going to play in the postseason, right? I think like I said at the start of this thing, there's a lot of people kind of pushing that, right? Like this is the year that the Spurs make the leap. But maybe the bigger question, more important question rather for the Spurs is who becomes that guy that is elite at something that could play next to Victor Wembanyama, who becomes that guy that they're building around. They traded for De'Aaron Fox last season, and then they get lucky in the lottery and they draft Dylan Harper. We asked Jeff Garcia, which one of these guys ends up being the better player in a few more years?
3 years will be more important, De'Aaron Fox or Dylan Harper. Look, it's kind of obvious, right? You got to go with the veteran, De'Aaron Fox. He's a guy that can bring immediate stability to this Spurs team longer term, within the 3 years we're talking about, than Dylan Harper can. He provides that immediate stability, that leadership, that scoring threat, guy that can run the pick and roll with Wemby now. Then Dylan Harper, who's still unproven. Of course, you also look at the Spurs' long-term commitment to Fox as Wemby's primary co-star. Now, not to say that Dylan Harper is not going to be bad in 3 years. He probably is going to be good. But the upside, we still have yet to see it blossom. We still have yet to see what can he do against NBA talent. Harper could emerge as a star, but down the road with Fox speed, playmaking, leadership, pairs well with Wemby in transition offense. Dylan Harper, still an unknown, but nevertheless, if you're going to look at the short term 3 years from now, you got to look at who the Spurs invested in. That's De'Aaron Fox.
Haize, in 3 years, De'Aaron Fox will be 30 years old. Dylan Harper will be 22 years old. Who do you think will be more important at that point to the Spurs?
Man, I hope it's Dylan Harper. I think for the Spurs, like if Dylan Harper, and this is not to say that De'Aaron Fox is going to be terrible, like that's not what I'm saying here. But if Dylan Harper is more important than De'Aaron Fox at that point in time, I think you got to be near a contending team. With what Wemby is, with De'Aaron Fox, he's still going to be there in that building. But I think you really want Harper to emerge as that really good mate with Wemby. Now the question about it is like, you still need a playmaker because Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, like either one of these guys, they weren't elite playmakers at any point, even in college. So you're still looking at Fox to bring that playmaker or Wemby to ascend to that. But I hope that they should be hoping that it's Harper by that point. Because if you have a 22-year-old Harper who's more important than Fox at that point in time, you're off to a good spot.
Can anyone hit a three? Anybody? Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, not supposed to be a shooter. Fox struggles with it. Can anybody hit a three? Because like you need that in today's game. Like you need the threat of being able to come off a screen and rise, especially with Wemby. If they have to try and like sink back to try and bracket Wemby, you want the guy to be able to knock down the open jumper. That to me is going to be a big part of this answer. I do think that Fox though is underrated here. I'll say Fox just because he's so much more of a polished player. I think that he gets credit for. Like Fox is not raw. Like he's got a lot of precision to his game. He understands how to run an offense. He can get to the rim. His defensive principles are really good. He's a low mistake player. And that to me is like really promising when you put him next to Wembanyama, because as Victor removes the mistakes in his games, if you can get a precise pick and roll game between De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, that's going to be elite. And that sets a tone and a template for Dylan Harper to follow and to learn from. And then he can kind of take the reins. So there's a lot of opportunity here. I think the answer of like, who's going to be better is as long as one of them is great, you're in a good spot.
I think both of you guys are great. How about that?
You're
that
fine.
was why we were going to kick off NBA Media Day week and our season previews here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you like what you heard today, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thank you to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We're going to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.